Hello, everybody. Happy New Year. Welcome back. It is 2026, and this year we're going bigger, bolder, and unapologetically real. If it's shaping New York or the market or the conversation, we're talking about it right here with the insight, energy, and perspective you came for. I'm Vince Rocco in New York, where the state of our industry is obvious, so let's get right to what everyone is talking about. When we break down who's buying real estate in New York City these days, the picture becomes very clear, and it's not driven by first-time entry-level buyers. Older millennials are leading the charge. These are buyers in their late 30s and early 40s who delayed purchasing, built careers, and are now entering the market with intention, stronger balance sheets, and a long-term view. Right behind them, though, is Gen X buyers who are often trading up, buying for space, schools, or multi-generational living, and making highly practical decisions. And then you have baby boomers who remain powerful and a powerful force here in New York City, many who are relocating, downsizing, upgrading with capital, lots of capital in all cash deals, which continues to influence pricing and negotiations. Then Gen Z is starting to appear, but in New York City, they remain a relatively small segment. Affordability, career stage, and the realities of co-op rules and financing mean most are still renters or waiting on the sideline. So when you talk about today's New York market, it really is being shaped by buyers with experience, capital, and clarity, and the dynamic defines how deals are getting done. And here on set with me today are Louise Phillips Forbes and Brown Harris Stevens, Leslie Modell from Sotheby's International Realty, and Daniel Blattman from Compass here in New York City. And they join me now to discuss. But first, let me welcome my listeners and viewers from across the United States and all around the globe. This is Talking New York Real Estate. So let's go behind the headlines and inside the state of our industry.
Hi, it's Stephen Bailey from Roadway Moving and Storage. Listening to Vince Rocco, you know the right partner makes all the difference. At Roadway, we deliver an experience your clients will love. For specialized services and white glove care, choose Roadway. Want to learn more? Email me at steven@roadwaymoving.com or visit roadwaymoving.com.
Okay, everybody, we are back. So, Happy New Year. 2026, as I said in the opening, I don't even understand where 2025 went, quite frankly.
Blink of the eye. True.
Blinked right by. We're doing the show coming up on 12 years. We're going to talk about that in a couple of weeks, which is all good. But today I want to talk about who our buyers are in New York City. We've gone through kind of questionable times, up and down markets, good markets, bad markets, flat markets, whatever. And we talk about that quite a lot here on the show. But there are buyers out there, and many of them, and things are happening and deals are happening. So what I really want to get to today is, who those buyers actually are. And we've got it broken out into millennials, Gen X, baby boomers, Gen Z, all the labels that everybody is very familiar with out there. So, Leslie, I want to start with you. Working with buyers directly, how are older millennials behaving differently today than they have in the last several years? I mean, as I said in the opening, they kind of sat back and took their time, grew their wealth, got their jobs, built their careers, and then all of a sudden, bang, I'm ready to buy. So what are they doing these days that may have been any different than other generations in the past? I mean, I just outlined a few things, but
Sure.
what makes them stand out more today?
Well, anyway, good morning.
Good morning. And welcome to the show, by the way.
Why,
Great
thank
to have you.
Thank you. Good to be here. Quite frankly, it's very interesting to me, the dynamic of what happened in the last quarter of 2025 into 2026. Typically, it's kind of slower. People are thinking holidays and moving into a different headspace. This year, October, November, December was fire in New York City. It was absolutely, in my viewpoint, one of the busiest quarters I've had in many, many, many years.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I have a cute story about this. I have now a client who I had never met, lives in Florida, lives in Greenwich, and lived in a rental in New York City. Baby boomer. Had no interest really in purchasing in New York, and then his rental building gets purchased. Now he is basically homeless when he's in New York. And he doesn't want to be in a hotel. He wants his own little pied-à-terre.
Sure.
So now he calls me up. It was a referral. And we go out to look. And within 3 days, he buys an apartment. We do the comps. We do the stats. This is somebody that had not lived in New York previously. And now he said this is the time. New York feels right to me. And he went and purchased.
It's like on sale. New York City is on sale.
Absolutely. The value in New York City right now is incredible.
And we had a very different reaction and response to what happened, in a vertical city with COVID. We didn't have what the tri-states and the outer boroughs experienced, which was a run in the market.
No, it's true. New York is on sale, and it's interesting how people who have rented for years are sitting back, and also because the rental prices are going up. In that particular case, the building was sold, but anybody who's been in a rental for a long time, rents are going up. They're very high. They're higher than they've ever been, and it's been that impetus to push some renters into the bicycle. But Daniel, from a millennial perspective, though, okay, are they looking at value, lifestyle, or are they risk averse? I mean, what is really prompting them to get out there and say, okay, I've done what I've done. Now it's time for me to get out there and buy something. What's leading that cause for them?
So as the resident millennial,
Show off.
we kind of we got the short end of the stick a lot because as we were coming of age and getting our jobs, it was 2008. And we never really had a chance. I know. Never really had a chance to find our footing at all in life. What we had a very unique opportunity for is during COVID, I feel like everybody really got to find themselves, got to live somewhere else, figure out what did they actually want. And we never really got to figure out what we wanted. I mean, I feel like I'm going through a bit of that soul searching right now in itself. But it was very scarcity and fear-based throughout our entire young adult life. So then during COVID, people traveled. They did all kinds of things. And then in 2024, we saw people coming back. They couldn't live in Florida anymore because Florida is a very short-term mindset. Before you become an alligator wrestler.
Live in Florida anyway, whatever.
Correct. It's a very, very limited time period. And the reason that we live in New York is because of the conversations. You can meet anybody, anywhere, the access to people that you have, and it is unmatched. And here we actually communicate. You go to London and you go to a restaurant by yourself, they give you a newspaper. Here, your neighbor's going to talk to you whether you like it or not. So there's always going to be something that is unmatched in New York City, and that's why everybody wants to be here. So in 2024, we saw people moving back. Then we started seeing people in 2025 finding their relationships. They wanted that permanence, and right now, for the first time, I feel like millennials are nesting in a very big way, and we don't want to move. So every year, if somebody is renting, you have this massive life panic. And we've been through that panic so many times. But if you're renting, your landlord's going to increase your rent or say that they're not going to renew your lease. The most challenging, anxiety-inducing time for a New Yorker is when you get kicked out of your home. And it happens all the time. And then you don't know where to leave, you don't know where to move. The rent's going to get increased to an insane amount of money, or you have to switch boroughs now. And if you move more than 5 blocks, it changes your entire life.
Yep.
So when you start looking at that, the only way to find that permanence is to buy a home. And that's why they're all buying.
And I wanted to ask you mentioned the word borough. So are any particular boroughs in all of New York City leading the pack? Is it Brooklyn? Is it Manhattan? For the millennials who are buying, where are they, as you call it, nesting these days?
So during COVID, Brooklyn massively took off. And I think everything is TV show driven because little Becky from Ohio was able to describe Brooklyn in different ways because of Girls, Gossip Girl, and Sex and the City. Now people are moving back into Manhattan because there's so much value in the Upper East Side. Same thing with Kips Bay and Murray Hill. And you have to remember that prior to COVID, we didn't have Wi-Fi and cell service in all the subways. You didn't have countdown timers in the subway. So you didn't know when your train was coming, and you had to wait upstairs on the street to finish your text message or phone call and then run downstairs to get on the train. All of that really happened in every train during COVID. You also had the Second Avenue subway line open up in Q1 of 2020 with all the restaurants and everything else getting rid of the construction equipment. So it changed how people live. Now that people are back in the office 5 days a week, which started last February, that is driving more of an urgency and surge to live in Manhattan. And soon we're going to see a massive surge in Brooklyn. In Queens.
Yeah.
There already
Yes,
is
already.
one,
Queens
but it's
already.
impossible to convince people to move to Queens
Yeah.
because the only TV show that they had was King of Queens, which doesn't do anybody good.
Brooklyn's still
Very funny.
incredibly on fire at
Yeah.
this point.
Brooklyn has
Very
been on
much.
fire. Daniel says COVID, a little before COVID.
Yeah, it was before
certainly
COVID.
right through COVID and has not given up. I mean, it's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
And there are no boundaries. I mean,
Yeah,
the
boundaries are
neighborhoods
changing.
have shifted as well.
I can remember when Williamsburg was a place that nobody would move to.
Nobody.
No one. Do you remember
Nobody.
that,
I
Vince?
certainly do.
The apartments were trading at an all-time low.
Yeah.
New construction
Yep.
all over Williamsburg, up and coming at that point. Nobody wanted to live in Williamsburg.
I wouldn't get
You
off the
couldn't
train.
give
in
North
Williamsburg.
Side Piers away.
Correct.
No.
And that's
Oh my God,
actually,
Northside Piers,
and that's where my
right.
daughter lives right now.
Yeah. Well,
Touche.
listen, that started it, I believe.
Yes.
That development was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Louise, so from your perspective on the millennial front, I mean, are you seeing more millennials today than you've ever seen before? Again, based on all the things that we've mentioned, or is it kind of just,
No, I
thing.
think that what we are experiencing from a buyer's front, and I've always had a very strong buyer's market that I serviced, and multi-generational at that. And I think that what we're experiencing for the millennials is that they want to purchase for the long term. They've been much more selective. 2021, I found 2021 to be when all the people that left New York went, oh my God, what have I done? And it took them 22 and then inflation for 23. It took them time to be educated to cautiously proceed. But the last quarter of 2025 was very strong. However, there's not enough inventory. So
No.
we are going to see a multiple bidding circumstance.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever your generation is. And I think that it's strong, and the behavior of where they'll go has shifted.
Yep.
And from a multiple...
You're very spot on there.
Yeah, exactly correct. But from a millennial perspective, once again, before we move on to Gen X, are millennials prepared to, as Louise said, get into bidding wars or hot markets because of a lack of inventory? Do they understand how it all works? I mean, we tend to think, people who are willing to do that are the Gen Xers or the baby boomers. But what about the millennials? Are they really willing to
I think
fight
so.
for that
I think it's
property?
all depends on how educated you are. I mean, for myself, like you had a 3-day tour. I had a 3-day tour where they saw my clients 3 days in a row came to town to purchase an apartment.
Yeah.
They saw 47 pieces of property.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
47.
I didn't know there was
I was going to say, where are 47 properties to see?
But they were spot on exactly what they knew exactly what they wanted. What they bought is exactly not what they
Of course.
articulated.
Yep.
But that is through
What else is
education.
true?
And you know what? The truth of the matter is that when I do my analysis and snapshots, I look back to the bottom of the market
Yeah.
and help individuals to literally look at the bottom and the peaks
Yep.
so that they understand where they're buying. And you got to realize that we are a city of renters.
Yes.
But
70%.
and there's
Still,
only
yes.
there's only 30% available to be bought.
Correct.
And a lot of people have nowhere to go at the moment, right? So this is the case study out in the suburbs, and the same problem. Yes, we can sell at an all-time high, but where are we going?
Yeah.
We
That's
have
why you
nowhere
have
to
all of
move
those
to.
boomers coming back into the city. There's like, I paid my dues. My kids were raised
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
private school
yeah.
in the suburbs, and now I want to be with my grandkids.
No, boomers are coming back into the city because they want to have fun.
Well, that's
Like
true.
some of them are like,
that's
sure, I'll
true.
hang out with the
Dude,
grandkids.
I am a boomer,
Sometimes
and I am still having fun.
Manhattan
Just to be
Empty
clear.
is
nester. Well, because we've never
fun.
left. I'm a boomer too. I did say that. I'm so sorry.
I know.
But we never left.
No,
right?
I
So,
couldn't even.
We
I told my husband to marry somebody else if he wanted to raise the
Correct.
kids in the suburbs.
but Daniel, as our resident millennial, self-described there,
You are, aren't you?
Thank you.
We hear a lot of things about millennials, right? Not always so great. Entitlement, a whole bunch of things that, whatever. From your perspective, living in that generation, Is a lot of that fabricated? Is a lot of that real? Or is a lot of it like you just, as you described before, serious, sat back smartly, figured out what the market's all about, figured out what your life should be about, and then go about it strategically? That's how I look at millennials. I think they kind of strategically sat back intentionally and said, hey,
Or cautiously.
and cautiously, correct. And, I'm not ready just yet, but my life plan is to get there. Am I right with that assessment, or am I off?
I think that we wanted to get there. I just think that we don't trust anybody.
Well,
So-
all
Yes.
right, that too.
That
That's
The
true.
major challenge is that everything that we thought that we knew and that was told to us, we learned was full of shit. So there was no job market when we were promised
when you
that
were
we were
coming
going to have
out,
jobs.
yeah.
So the
Coming into it, there
millennial
was not.
market was the first full generation that said, like, the Gen X, you go to college,
Yeah.
you get a job.
Yeah.
Millennials were, you go to grad school, you get a job, because now everybody goes to college.
That's very true.
We came out and like, all right, now everyone went to college, then grad school, and all the costs went up because they allowed international money to come in. And
for school?
for school.
Yeah, $100,000 to go
then
to
all of that happened for
Unbelievable.
millennials.
NASCAR.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's insane. So then
When I
you
paid
have that, and then you don't get a
year
job.
to go to school.
So you didn't get a job, and then you didn't have stock market, and you didn't have anything else, and you saw your parents were afraid, you were afraid. I mean, I was in New York City waiting tables, and I had people living on my couch as they were coming to New York to try to get jobs because there were no jobs anywhere else. I'm like, how am I a waiter making more money than all my friends that went to grad school?
Correct.
And sorting out what that life is. So I was very grateful to be able to give an opportunity.
Correct.
But that's what millennials were dealt for a very long time, along with crippling debt. So now that they're getting out of debt in another way, we don't want
They
to
also-
have things ripped out from underneath us again.
Yeah.
And we need that safety and security. So we've learned that that's the only way for safety and security is actually owning.
But what's also happened during that generation that you're talking about is there's been a tech boom and a growth
Yeah.
right.
that is just unprecedented. And now no longer is it just a financial market, New York City. I mean,
Oh, yeah. We have
the
more tech
pool-
jobs than finance jobs now.
Yeah.
Much more. All right, listen, we got to take a break. We're coming back. We're going to talk about the next generation, Gen X, right after these messages. This is Talking New York Real Estate on the More Network in New York. Don't go.
I'm Brian Scott Cohen, one of the top loan originators in the country and the #1 mortgage originator at Guaranteed Rate Infinity. Guaranteed Rate Infinity arguably has the most advanced tech in the industry. Our completely digital loan process makes it easy and efficient for homeowners, from a 15-minute pre-approval to the digital application and through closing. My team and I would love to help you get into the home of your dreams.
From residential and commercial closings to litigation, Romer DeBoss is your full-service real estate law firm. We blend big firm knowledge with boutique-level attention, delivering outcomes that exceed every expectation. Contact us at romerdeboss.com.
Okay, everybody, we are back. So, Leslie, Gen X, okay, that's the age group of 45 to 60. They don't get much attention these days. They're kind of like in the middle of the match here. But they're very active, okay? What is it that they're prioritizing? What are they looking for? And really, how active are they?
Interesting. Actually, what they're looking for is growth. These are people that perhaps have been in a 2-bedroom apartment. That's what they could afford at that time. When they were first getting into the New York market, they're a couple, they have 2 children. I have a lot of clients in that millennial market right now that have 2 children squeezed into a 2-bedroom. And they so passionately want to live in New York.
Yeah.
They'll do anything to stay and not have to go out to the suburbs. So what I'm finding with my Gen X, this is their growth period. They're having, they're getting into better jobs. They have more income, they have more asset, and they can get into a larger scale apartment, move in, and have that flexibility of space and location. And recently, case in point, I had somebody from the Upper West Side. She was in a very small 3-bed. She has a tremendous growth in her job, and she's making a lot more money than she did, let's say, 5 years ago. And she's upgraded. She moved to the Upper East. She got into a very large apartment, like a 9-room. And now she has space and nearer to the schools, and she's thrilled. So for me, it is the growth period for so many people that have bided their time, right? They've been in New York. They've squeezed into these apartments. They don't want to leave.
Yeah. You know what's interesting, though, Louise, and help me understand this. You know, there's a huge age gap from 45 to 60. So I would say at 45 years old, you're coming into your own, you're understanding a lot more than you did before. You know, I would say starting your career or starting out in life at 45, and then the other end of it, 60, you're like getting ready to retire or getting ready to say, hey, I've been there, I've done that, whatever. So it kind of runs the gamut, right, of people and what they think about and where they are in whatever stage of their life. What's your experience been with this? I mean,
I work with a lot of entrepreneurs who have had events, liquidity events through companies that have been sold, including my husband. And he's a serial entrepreneur. And so that sort of sector of Gen Z that are actually, they were millennials when from the standpoint in their 30s when they had these events. And today they are living their best life. They're flying, many of them private. They have multiple homes, and they're upgrading by choice because their kids are now going to college, and they're not buying smaller. They are buying on a Fifth Avenue address that they couldn't have done prior. And actually their taste shifted through their wealth growth. And so I think that, you know, new chapters for those individuals and the entrepreneurs that I'm working with that are I keep confusing it.
Gen X.
Gen X. Just checking to make sure
We'll get
you're
to the
awake.
Z's.
I'm awake, maybe.
And
First day back, I'm sorry.
they're ready to do something completely different. So if I sold them a townhouse, they're now going to Tribeca and doing something sexier and interesting. And their kids, they want to have room for their kids to come home.
Interesting choice of word sexier, because that's how I would think of that group. I would agree with you 100%. They're doing things.
They paid their dues. They worked their butts off. And they've had events that were literally like, my husband's on his 4th company. He would have never thought, and he is not money driven. He is solution driven. He wants solution for complicated things. And so I find that this generation, which are tech individuals and entrepreneurial, think very differently than millennials.
So
but just one point. We can't forget the midsection of this, which is it's 50, 51, 52.
Right.
They're looking for larger scale units at that point, right? Because they've already done the small, and now they are saying, well, listen, things are going great at work. I'm making more money. I could be an entrepreneur. I could be a tech person, or I can just be in a growth spurt. And so that 50, 51, 52, they still have children in school.
Of course they do.
And they're still in that midsection.
Or you could be like me. They're like still in elementary school.
Well, good for you. But
I'm a late bloomer.
But, you know,
Kissed a
high
lot of
school
frogs.
at least, you know, a lot of the people I work with, they have their children are in high school. So that whole midsection
Mine
can't
were
be
like
forgotten
8 and
about
6.
Nice work.
Yeah, right.
They were.
They were is the operative word. Daniel, based on what was just said here, are they the most decisive group, Gen X? Or is it an oversimplification?
I think it's a different way of self-discovery. And some are further in that path than others. The way that I feel Gen X is that it's the first time that they've gotten to be selfish. And they haven't had that as an opportunity because they've either been taking care of their jobs, then they were taking care of their kids, which is Gen Z, which we'll get to them. Now that they don't have to take care of anybody anymore, they've made it, they really get to figure out what do they want out of life. How selfish do they want to be? And that's where I spend a lot of time working with them And no matter how successful they are, I've worked with Fortune 100 CEOs, and getting them now to actually think about themselves
But I
and
feel
what
like
are they
that's
really
more
going to do there.
baby boomers than Gen X.
It's both. You'd be surprised.
I think I would agree with Daniel from the standpoint, because I do think there is a responsibility that's beaten into the boomer age generation that has shifted. And I think about my parents being from the Depression, and everything was for owning your own home and your education for your kids.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't necessarily change through the generations, but the results of those educations and what you get out of it is what you're talking about for the millennials.
Yeah.
I agree, but I think, they're making decisions based on where they are in life.
Exactly.
Leslie, you mentioned, 50, 51, 52. In some cases, they're still, raising young children.
Correct.
A lot of people started out late in life.
That's
a lot of people in their 50s have children going to
Particularly
college.
in New York, because you're
Particularly in New
here
York.
for
Absolutely.
your career. I
Yes.
built
Correct.
my business doing transactions with single, highly successful
Correct.
women.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's like I'm 41 and just came to terms with, all right, I might be able to do a kid.
There you go.
Luckily, you
Like
don't have to worry about
Revelation on talking
Hopefully,
New
you've
York.
got somebody to do that with.
that. Yeah.
Not yet.
No, yeah. Well, he's looking.
Okay, that's
Okay,
that's
so-
its own marketing.
So, what are what?
We've seen that commercial.
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
That's okay. But, based on what we said about the millennials, what boroughs are the Gen X folks looking in, or are they specifically in one and not really paying attention to the others? I mean, where are they all?
They're looking in Manhattan.
Yeah.
They're looking in Brooklyn. They're not looking in Queens.
No.
I've worked with some that were even open to Harlem. They are really trying to figure out, they have a curiosity and they don't know what they don't know. So they'll start one way and then be open to something completely different. Because in Manhattan or New York City in general, you pay for your immediate 5 blocks. And as you shift through that, people don't realize that the Upper East Side is 6 to 8 different neighborhoods. Tribeca is minimum of 2.
Upper West
Yeah.
Side,
So
same thing.
as as people start to think about this and really process it, what they thought that they knew, now that they have time to really think about their life and what do they want with that immediacy, they get to process everything a little different. They might think, oh, I really need to Brooklyn. And then they go to Brooklyn. They're like, this is too slow for me because Brooklyn feels like the suburbs. Then they want to be more in Soho. And they're like, this isn't it. So then you show them 4 blocks away in Soho.
Yeah.
Now it works. So people start with this idea and you really have to guide
It's a
them
discovery,
and teach
right? For sure.
And also, the Upper East Side is hot now, right?
Yeah.
Do you
It's
have
very hot.
Every article coming out.
It's very hot again.
All the restaurants from downtown or uptown, the museums, the schools, everything is
I moved away
Upper
from
East
the Upper
Side
East
now.
Side because it was not hot. How when it 25 years ago, whatever,
Exactly.
and then it came back. The
And the
Second Avenue.
opportunities for the co-ops on Park Avenue.
Well,
let's be clear,
of
guys.
course.
Upper East Side is by far the best value play.
The best, hands down.
And it's the only thing that can really skyrocket because it has forced
But it's
appreciation.
still true. Based on our fair housing rules, we can't talk about schools and stuff when we're with clients. But here on the show, we certainly can. But people are still driven by school choices. School-age children, where they're going to go to school, whether it's private, whether it's public. So that helps define a neighborhood that they want to buy into. Is that still correct?
100%.
I mean, if you have a young child going to school, you're not going to take them to Tribeca necessarily unless they're in elementary school.
And when
I
they
would
do-
disagree with that.
36,
You
I would
absolutely
disagree with
will.
that.
I
It's
have
just
clients that-
affordability.
well, I've had clients that
Well,
only
that too.
wanted to
And-
live
and
downtown.
inventory.
Yeah.
And then decided they had to move to the Upper East Side because the schools that they wanted were all uptown or the Upper West,
Right.
Upper East or the Upper West.
Right.
But I've had several clients over the years that resided in Tribeca.
Yeah.
And their children went to school uptown.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And they- every
and
single
they
day
did
back and
fine, whether
forth.
it's
Yep.
having a driver or their
Correct.
kids
Or
getting
mass
at an
transit
age
or
where,
whatever
yeah,
the
I mean,
case
look
may
with
be.
the queue. My kids went to school at Windward, and I live on the Upper West
Exactly.
Side,
Yeah.
and my son navigated it at 10 to get there. You know what I mean?
Well,
Yeah,
it's
at
so
11,
interesting.
you're basically an empty nester.
Well, it's so interesting because when I'm on the subway, sometimes in the early morning school, early school hours, I see these 10-year-olds and these 12-year-olds and these young
They
guys
run in
and
a
girls.
herd.
Yes, they do.
They do run in a herd, and I'm like, oh my God, if those are my kids, I'd be so nervous if they're on the train. But you know
I
what?
know.
But they grow up in New York City. They learn.
They have an awareness.
Yep.
They're
There's-
savvy.
They
It's
do.
unbelievable.
They do.
They
And so when
do.
I stop and think, I'm like, okay, you don't need to be nervous because they got it going on.
Yep.
They know what's happening. They're used to it already. They're going to be even better when they get older and able to navigate.
Yeah.
But I still think, though, that, the empty nester, philosophy, creates drive in people to either downsize, move to neighborhoods, do other things. I'm tired of living in the same. I'm living in my apartment 21 years, and I look around
time for a
sometimes,
change.
and I'm like, you know what? It's just time to do something else.
But I wouldn't
Will
call
I
it
do it? I
downsizing.
don't
No,
know.
it's not downsizing.
I would
at all.
call
I'm
it
not gonna
right. I would
downsize.
call it right sizing.
I'm looking
I'm
at
not
an
gonna
8,000
downsize.
square foot townhouse with a downsizer
Well,
coming
they-
from the Upper East Side.
And I'm
but they
finding
want to
people
entertain.
upsizing.
Yeah,
Right.
they
People
want
are
to
buying
entertain.
bigger because they want the space.
I agree with
Yeah.
Louise. I'd right size. I'm not looking at downsize, but
Yeah.
it's just, 21 years. I'm like, okay, I'm looking at the same walls for 21 years. It's like,
Change
whatever.
is so
Change
refreshing.
is-
the way
is-
that I
nothing is constant except change.
I went
Isn't that a
home to
fact?
Ohio for the first time in 2 years, and walking around my parents' house, which was the same thing it was when I was growing up,
100%.
I didn't feel like I was 41. I felt like I was 18 walking through these things, thinking John Mayer. And it's just you can't grow. You can't appreciate who you are when you're looking at everything the same.
Yeah.
So I always tell people you need to change your furniture, you need to change your wall decoration every 7-ish years so that you can adapt to who you are today.
Or your home.
Or change your home.
Yeah.
And
Which
it is
is what-
amazing
which
how
is the
people
pattern.
stay in their homes for 40 years, and then you walk in to give it an appraisal and to put it on the market, and you are literally shocked how everything is exactly the same as it was 40 years ago.
But
Exactly.
to be clear, those
couch is more
that,
musty,
that
though.
pattern
Just a
of
bit.
human nature, that was my parents' generation, where you were in the same house for 40 years, and it's just not what we have for boomers, millennials. I mean, I've done 9 transactions with a family where I met her as a single woman, and she, through that growth, she's made more money, more wealth with her real estate than she had in her career.
Exactly. I mean, I was away for, like I said, I've been in my apartment 21 years, and I was away for 2 weeks over the holiday. I mean, literally not in my apartment for 2 weeks, which is a rarity, but I just decided I'm going to do it this year. It is what it is,
Congrats.
family, whatever. I came back on Saturday, and I put the bags down, and because I'm thinking about maybe wanting to make a change at some point, I put the bags down in my entrance foyer, and I looked around and I said, okay. And I immediately got into a mode where I turned furniture around, I moved this around, I did this. I mean,
Purging is a good one.
I was purging, but it came
that
out
where
of-
you got that
I don't even
sweater?
know where it came from. I found it in the closet, and I'm like,
In the
okay,
way
so in the way back, really. And I'm like, oh. So then I sat down. It was like 8 o'clock at night. I'm like, what did you just do? But since Saturday, every morning when I wake up, I look around, I'm like, oh, okay.
Now, how did that spontaneity feel?
It felt good, but now it gives me a little more time to think about, all right, I'm comfortable again. So do I want to make a change? Do I not want to make a change? I don't know. We'll talk about that when we talk about baby boomers on the other side of this break. Don't go anywhere. Talking New York real estate. We'll be back right after these messages.
Hi, I'm Dylan Pachulik, CEO of XL Real Property Management, New York's most trusted name in luxury property management since 2012. We specialize in managing individual apartments, townhouses, and rental buildings held by absentee owners. We maintain our properties with the highest standards of quality and service so that owners can choose a hassle-free approach to real estate investing. Rented or owner-occupied, we handle it all. For more information, contact us at xl-rpm.com.
Okay, guys, we're back. So we're going to talk about baby boomers, and that is the age group from 61 to 79. Unfortunately, I'm in that category. I wish I were a millennial, but I'm not. They, remain a major force. If I think everybody would agree. And they're mostly downsizing, reinvesting, or strategically repositioning capital within New York City. How are they doing that?
Buying
or why
for their
are they
Gen
doing
X kids?
I mean,
Gen Z kids.
They're buying for their
Zs.
Gen Z kids. Yeah,
Yep.
for sure.
I mean that multi-generational wealth has been, through my 35 years in the business, has been prevalent and present, but I think even more so. I mean, literally, if I think about, the increase of trust transactions that are happening, or the parents are actually becoming the institution. So instead of paying a 7% interest rate, they'll do a 5% interest rate for their buyers, for their kids.
Yeah.
Because the kids do want to, they don't want anything handed to them, in my experience. And the baby boomers they're representing 2, sometimes 3 transactions if they're selling their suburban home to come back to the city, and they're also doing something in Colorado or in Florida or,
Colorado's big these days.
Very
it
big.
is. It's a
And
quality of
Arizona.
life.
They're both actually dropping, and they have a massive oversupply in both.
Well, yeah.
I'm not talking about mass development projects. I'm talking about a very elite choice where they could live anywhere they want.
Yeah.
And they are, prepping for the next chapter, which is spreading they've planned their trust. They're helping to execute those acquisitions and protecting their wealth.
We talk about cash in this business. I mean, and on this show for 12 years, we talked cash is king, no matter what the market is, no matter what the price point is, cash is cash, and it's a big deal. How does all cash or high equity buying from this particular group, the baby boomers, change the deal dynamics in a particular deal? Does it take anything away from anybody else getting involved in the deal? Does cash always win? And why is cash important to people like this? You mentioned their trust funds, their savings for years and years. Why is all cash important?
I mean,
It's cleaner deal.
it's a
a much
cleaner deal
easier,
for your
cleaner deal.
seller. It's a cleaner deal
Well,
for
for
your
the seller,
seller.
correct.
And
Well, that
for,
wins
and
the
for
day.
And for the purchasers, there's often a tax opportunity that you can manifest through investments. So I see it often where they're pulling the money right back out.
I think the number in 2025 is
And writing off
greater
their
than
clothes.
60% of the deals were cash.
68. Yeah.
68% were
Also,
cash.
why would they be paying a 6% mortgage if
Right.
they have the cash handy in the bank? It really
Depends
doesn't-
on
it's-
if you're earning 15 to 18% on your money. I mean,
I would say leave your cash in assets and,
I would,
and finance.
Right.
Well, to a point, because if somebody, it depends what their wealth is, right? If somebody has $100 million, they don't need to take out a mortgage for $3 million. It's unless there's a certain tax ramification. But at the end of the day, my clients that are really serious buyers and they can do cash, they're doing cash. I probably did more than 60% cash this year.
Oh,
yes,
absolutely.
but
Absolutely.
of
And why
those
not?
60% cash, how many of them are pulling the money out and taking advantage of the tax opportunity?
And a lot of them are also
I
doing
would imagine
asset
probably
loans,
more than
or they're
50%.
borrowing
I'm sure
from
there's a
help from
reason
life
they're doing
insurance.
it.
So it's like a lot of cash purchases when they have that kind of assets. They're doing an asset loan,
Right.
or they're borrowing from their life insurance policies at a 2% interest rate. So they're not necessarily cash. They're just shifting some things around.
Yeah.
And also, it depends how much they want the unit, right? If you're in a bidding situation, as we all know,
Absolutely.
and somebody's contingent on financing and other people are financing, then you come in as the cash buyer. That's who they're going to gravitate toward.
Yeah.
And that is important when you're trying to win an apartment.
Yeah, a buyer
Yes,
of
but
mine just lost a deal because we got beat out
Yeah.
from an all-cash buyer, and they were very upset. And I'm like, listen, this is going to happen, and it will happen again.
I would
probably.
also just remind that in the idea of the formula of utilizing cash and cash being king is that there are tax impacts on capital gains that are easy. They're easy solutions to resolve
Correct.
it, whether it's a negative pledge off of your assets or the life insurance, which they're most likely leveraging.
Yeah, and for my sellers,
particularly the
and
boomers.
for people and for buyers, I prep them a lot in understanding contingencies. Being willing to go non-contingent on financing, because we don't do the same inspections and the risk of an inspection that you do for a house, where cash really matters. Here, cash only really matters. It saves you 15 days in the closing process, which is not that much. And it gives you appraisal concerns because we don't have any control over the appraisal. If you're putting more than 20% down, if you're putting 30% down, or you're willing to, or make up the difference between an appraisal amount and the purchase price, whatever that balance is, and you have significant reserves, and you're non-contingent on financing, I would take that buyer over a lower cash deal any day.
We talked about
Well, that's lower, but if you had a cash deal,
if they're the same, then you're going to take the cash.
Well, correct.
Right.
We talked about downsizing before, and I have a particular client who, a boomer, is wanting to sell their apartment because they want to help their children buy assets in New York City. So are you all seeing anything like that where boomers are selling their larger apartments, downsizing to a smaller apartment so they can give their children, one child, two children, whatever, money to buy their first home?
I think they're monetizing those assets not just for the purpose to be able to do that. In doing that and right-sizing for their next chapter, there is usually an excess, which could be equal to $250,000 each child, and if they have 3 kids, as a gift for them to help accelerate their purchase.
And parents want to see their children while they're still alive.
Correct.
Yep.
Right?
Correct.
What is better than helping out a child that you really love and you're here to get involved with their happiness and their joy? And I see so many parents who are guarantors or doing co-purchasing now so that their child can get that next leg up into an apartment that they could actually stay in the city.
And they can also create wealth in doing that. No, my clients and I had 3 different...
You could be buying.
I had 3 different situations where purchasers that in my conversations, because they were working on getting a gift or a loan, however they were going to structure it, through the conversations that we had on calls and Zooms with their parents, as I got to understand and know their circumstances, they all said, I would rather them use it and enjoy it while I'm alive and facilitate it. So it's an attitude shift that I think has happened over the last, maybe since COVID. People's their lenses have changed.
Or is it called,
and I think Daniel said before,
guilt?
Boomer guilt?
For feeling like they got it all, and then Gen Z or Gen X, whatever, the Gen Z's got nothing.
I think it's what you said earlier. I think it was you, Daniel, when you said, you parents back in the day, my parents certainly said, go to school, get an education, get a good job with a pension, and then buy real estate. That's how I was raised. That's all I used to hear my parents talk about. So at the age of my parents back in those days, I probably, if I had children, would say the same thing. Go to school, get a good job, and if I need to help you buy real estate, I'm going to help you do that, because buying real estate here in New York City is such a value. And as you said earlier, we're on sale right now.
And
so get out there and buy.
Even my kids who are 20 and 22, my kids, they both had a conversation 2 years, maybe 3 years ago, that before they were in college, my younger son says, I want to own real estate. And it's a mentality that didn't exist, because I think it's also a part of it. It didn't exist. I would have never thought about owning. And that's, yet my parents were Depression kids. Everything was about owning your home. So I just think it's an interesting transformation, and it is all about what you talk about at the dinner table.
Yeah, exactly. And that's all I heard. And growing up, of course, now I'm in a career with no pension.
Exactly.
I offer pensions on my team.
But I worked in corporate America well, there you go. I worked in corporate America for years where there were pensions. So, but the point is, that's how we were schooled. That's how we were taught at the dinner table. When company was over, it was always the same mantra. So when I got to be a certain age, I had to buy. My first apartment on my own, I bought.
Wow.
I owned. I did not rent.
And by the way,
my father would have
I had a roommate when I first bought my apartment because I couldn't afford what I bought.
Of course. Well, I kind of scraped along. and did it. But he was very happy that I bought something versus renting. He's like, oh, okay, you're going to do that? I'm like, didn't you tell me that for 20 years? I mean, or more?
It was probably the smartest thing you've ever done.
It was absolutely. Of course it was. Let's talk about Gen Z. Here we go. Gen Z. We hear a lot about them, but we see them less in ownership right now. Gen Z is, that's a good question.
They're youngins.
They're in their 20s, up to, I think,
those
30.
are my kids.
Exactly.
Okay,
they're youngins.
I got it.
In New York City, things are really expensive, even though we're on sale, and I agree with that. Gen Z is just starting to get it together. So they're sitting on the sidelines. Now, I have Gen Z nieces and nephews who say, I want to buy something. I don't want to rent. I want to do this. I want to do that.
Absolutely.
Again, listening to my brother, who was raised by the same parents as I was. But they can't at the moment. They've just graduated college. They're just starting their jobs. They're doing well, but they can't afford to buy. Where are they going with all of this? And how long is it going to take them to get to where some of them want to be, some of them are still trying to figure it out? I get it. It's part of being young. Where are they going?
I think that they are a very responsible generation. They want the responsibility, but they don't know how to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a challenging emotional place to be in because I feel like they want to grow up very much. And a lot
Quickly,
of them,
or just grow up in general? I sometimes get the feeling they want to grow up faster
I
than
think that they want to grow up
the
fast.
time clock is going to make that happen.
And because they have a massive urgency because during their growing up, they saw social media.
Yeah.
And everything is so fast,
Mm-hmm.
so they don't know how to savor the moment and have more of an attention span than a goldfish who just died at the county fair. So finding that stillness, I think, is their big challenge. And the way to do that is through the responsibility of actually making a home and a place where they feel safe, where they can actually slow down. So a lot of them, because it's New York City, have the ability to have their parents help.
Exactly.
The other people that I'm talking to in that place are looking at FHA loans. And fortunately, nobody talks about this. You can do FHA loans in Queens, and you can do them in Brooklyn, and you can buy a 2 or 3 family home, even a 4 family home, almost up to $2 million.
How does the dynamic change between a millennial and a Gen Zer from your perspective as a millennial? What do you see they, being Gen Z, need to do quickly to get up to where you are today? I mean, I said before, I think they want to rush things. They want to get there faster than their time clock is going to get them there. But do you see any kind of dynamic there?
What I don't feel that Gen Z has is being grounded. And they have a different entitlement because they saw job promotions happen so fast. Like you would see somebody during COVID. A lot of my friends that were at JP Morgan or different banks saw this where you'd have a first-year analyst making $70,000. Then in order to be competitive, a new bank had to recruit them at $120,000. Yeah. So you're seeing these massive salary increases without actually deserving it or paying their dues. And they weren't even in the office place to know how body language changes the negotiation. So you're even seeing people get
water
promoted
cooler
to
conversation, how to be mentors.
Miss all of that. So they need to start participating.
I mean, don't you
that aspect.
Don't you notice that in our business ourselves?
Terrible. Yeah.
The ability and what television has done for the grunt, grit work that it takes to build a business.
Yeah. It's like when I got into real estate, I started doing $1 to $3 million deals right away. And it was just hustle because of all I know is grind and work.
Right.
I would talk to people and they're like, oh my God, that's so great. You're doing deals above $1 million. And these would be people that had been in business for 20 years who are still doing the 500 to $1 million. And because of $1 million listing, people think that the $20 million deals happen all the time. They don't.
No.
There's not that many.
They don't. There's not
you know
that
what?
many.
The Gen Zs don't have the assets, right? So if, let's say you're 25 years old, you have a good job, but we're in New York City, and let's get real. You need to have significant liquidity post-closing to get into a co-op. That's where your parents come into play. And that's really, when I deal with people in this segment, it's always the parents that are helping them.
For
they're
sure.
giving them the gift. They're giving them the down payment
Not
for
in a
the
co-op,
contract.
though, in a condo.
But no, even
No,
in,
in
you
a
could do it in
co-op.
a
Well,
co-op.
in some
as
co-op,
well.
in some co-ops.
Absolutely.
You can do
Co-ops
it.
have
You
that
can give
flexibility.
gifts.
They
And
are
by the
doing
way,
it.
they
all
can
the time.
co-purchase.
Yeah.
And they can
If-
co-purchase.
if-
They can be guarantors. They
Yeah.
could do all the above. And that is really, if you want your child to be close by and you have the availability to give them the funds, that's what I'm
Absolutely.
seeing a lot of
Right.
with
Yeah.
the people I'm working with.
It's like-
They want their children to live in New York, depending on where, and they want to help them stay and be here and own
yeah.
because they don't want them to continually rent and spend $8,000 a month
My son
and throw it
won't
out the window.
even discuss it. He's like, I am not spending a dime on rent. I'm
Smart.
going to save.
Yep.
He's like, can I live at home when I come back? But also they're
Can I live
already
at
on the
home?
mindset of Brooklyn or Harlem and a four unit townhouse and renting to their friends
Yep.
Yep.
and or young professionals. So it's a mindset, and it's also our responsibilities as both real estate brokers, but also educators and parents to communicate this because it is a mindset.
You and your husband are enormously successful, and you have Gen Z children, 2 boys. When you engage with them, whether it's real estate related, whether it's buying something, renting something, as you just said, one son said, no, I'm not renting, and I agree with him. What's that dynamic between your husband and you and the boys? I mean, you get what they want.
Abusive.
You get what they want to do, but we had a whole different experience.
Yeah, I mean, here's what I will just share is that, I think it's bringing them into the conversation and to our thoughts and how we think, and then having a healthy back and forth of agreeing to disagree on certain things.
And that's
my sons inherited a very, $45,000 from Chris's father when he passed away, and I was like, okay, do you guys want to buy a car?
It's a lot for a 20-year-old.
That is a lot.
And do you know what? They both bought stock, and they were like, I am not buying a car. I'm not wasting my money on a car.
Exactly.
I'm going to use yours. And you know what? This is when
course.
they started to research on buying that property that they bought in New Haven, which was a multifamily that they're going to see
Very
a
smart move.
significantly. Not only that, they've got a growth already in the asset. So anything is possible, but it has to start in a conversation.
It all starts in the conversation. We have a few minutes left, and I want to talk about, given what we talked about, whether it's boomers, whether it's Gen X, Gen Z, whatever, the buyers today are experienced and well capitalized, and how should then our sellers react to that? And what should we as agents be telling them they should do? Adjust pricing, stage better, be a little better in their negotiation, or understanding that they should be a little better in negotiation? What, as their expert, their consultants, what should we be telling sellers today to prep them to be prepared?
All the above, what you just
All of
said.
the above.
All the above. I mean, you actually nailed exactly what, when I go on my pitches and
Because pricing is still always an issue.
pricing is an issue. Well, everyone always thinks their apartment's worth more than it actually is.
Correct.
But I think staging is vitally important in today's world.
Yeah.
And when I go into these apartments, even something that I'm getting something on 86th Street, it's an estate. I said, you need to stage because it makes a difference to walk into a fully formed
Whitewashed.
apartment
100%.
than opposed to walking into
whitewashed,
it's empty.
Right.
yes, and not only that, it'll tell a story. That you will also the noise of looking at what they have in their space. You can vanilla ice cream it, and then they can put their own imagination in it.
You don't like paint chips that you're served at your open house?
But I will also
But the
just say
staging
that
is important because you want it to
Yeah.
feel like home. When you walk in, you want to sit down. You want to look at the view. You want to feel that energy and the vibe in the apartment. You don't feel that unless there's a place to sit down. And so staging, pricing, vitally important. And you
Pricing-
outprice yourself, you're cooked.
Pricing is vitally important, but yet,
in the
yet
first 8 days
That's
on
it.
the market
Well,
is
That's it.
Yep.
everything.
Everything.
it's
everything.
all of it. But when you're having these initial conversations with sellers, they'll still say, well, and I'm going through that right now. They're still trying to decide if I'm going to get the listing or not because they're $150,000 over what it should sell for.
Yep.
And I've been at this game for 20-something years, and I think I know how to talk to people, and I'm struggling with the right words to say, hey, guys,
here's
really?
the thing that I always use and fall back on is that they're the 3 Ps. You've heard me say this.
Correct.
There's preparation,
Yes.
presentation, and pricing. And secondly, the most important thing is that I cannot make up the market. And our buyers
No, we cannot.
have so much access to data that the virtually staging of apartments don't tell the story
Right. No.
often. And so
No.
it is part of why, like, you have to have a strategy. Like, at the end of the day, it's your home, but we have to partner together a game plan. And if you feel strongly at 150, which I'm telling you is not the market, let's go for the process, but we're giving it 8 days,
Yeah.
10 days.
That's what I
Virtual
say. I say
staging.
2 weeks, and because you don't want to dismiss their feelings,
No,
right? You
right.
have
For
to
sure.
embrace the
Right.
way they feel and respect it. I always say, give me 2 weeks. If we don't see immediate traction, we are not priced correctly. We have to make an adjustment right away.
And-
because you don't want to chase the market down. That is probably one of the
Right,
worst
right.
things that a broker
Very
that
bad.
we can do. Month after month, and just
We see it all the
And
time.
we have a moment in our market where I believe that if there's so many educated buyers waiting for new product,
Yep.
that if you put it actually just a little bit under,
Yep.
you will
Yep.
get $300,000
That's right.
above your asking
Oh,
price,
yeah.
which has happened to me with 8 offers.
Yep.
So it's
But
a
that
strategy.
is such a hard
Well,
sell.
people-
It's a
It is
strategy
so
that
hard.
works.
People
You're right.
forget
very
that
hard.
Very hard.
pricing is not value. Pricing is a positioning tool on where the
For
property is
traffic?
going to be placed
100%.
in the market. It is
100%.
not the actual value. That is
Not.
decided by the
by
market.
the market.
That's right. That's right.
Absolutely.
Drop
And
the
don't
mic.
virtual stage the apartment, please.
No, virtual
Changes the
staging.
entire
Oh,
suspension
you
of
know,
disbelief, and people walk in and like, oh my God, this is not what I thought it was going to be.
You know, I have
then they start
never,
looking back
ever
through to
done
figure out
that.
what apartment they're seeing.
I
was never a
virtually
believer
stage,
in
but
that.
I put the pictures.
We do the same.
Yeah, right.
Sometimes
right.
it's nice to be able to look
It
at
is.
the dark green
Mm-hmm.
apartment walls as it is, and then whitewashed.
Exactly.
And that is such an easy snap of a
All right, we've got a minute left. Quickly, where do you think the market's going to go, given all we talked about today, regardless of who's buying, between, not even between, starting right now, 2026, where are we going this year?
Right now, our market is going to see massive growth. I think we're going to see the rise of the co-op because people need to remember you're not going to rent your apartment out.
Yep.
You do not need the flexibility of a condo. So save your money on the closing cost, save your 30% on the purchase price, buy a phenomenal home that you can really make your own, and then buy investment properties. So figure that out and start setting yourself up for the long term. So I'm certain that this year is the rise of the co-op. It's also going to be the rise of adjusting the ego to move to a neighborhood that makes sense versus move to a neighborhood that gives you the immediacy for what your life is today versus who you're going to grow into, because we're all growing in a phenomenal way right now.
Here's what I said on the show a couple of weeks ago before we took a break. I said, in 2026, our problem is not necessarily going to be interest rates, because I think interest rates are coming down a little bit, not much, but people are starting to get used to what they are, what they have been for the past year and a half, 2 years. Ain't going to change. It is what it is. What I believe our biggest issue is going to be in 26, and I think Louise referenced it before, is inventory. We're going to have lower inventory.
I
this
think
year.
we'll see
We have it
inventory.
now. We have very low
have it.
inventory now.
I think this is the first time that sellers are actually going to understand for the first time in 5 years that if you put your apartment on the market, it will sell.
Correct.
That's
Whereas
correct.
they haven't had that belief for a long time.
Yeah.
So that's held a lot of sellers back.
Yep.
I also think people want a bite of the apple. There is such a longing for people that I speak to from all over the country to come back to New York, to be
I agree.
back in the city that they love and that they want to be a part of again.
Yep.
And now is their opportunity to do that, because the prices are low. People are really not understanding what great value New York is now, certainly compared to Florida.
and the
or-
wealth opportunity for growth.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
And
when
I
people
totally agree
say
with
to
it.
me, how have I found this to change the people's mindset? I said, I haven't. There's been no change.
Yeah.
If anything, I've seen steady growth for the last quarter into this first quarter of 26. I'm already have 4 people wanting to buy an apartment right now.
You know, when
Yeah.
people say to me all the time, what about this? What about that? You know, how do you feel about New York? My answer always is New York City is my town.
That's right.
It is my town.
And
It's
I'll
been
never
for
bet against it.
Almost 40
Never.
years. I will never bet against
Yeah.
it, and I'm not going anywhere except to a break. And when we come back, you're going to hear my final thoughts. Don't go anywhere.
This beautiful set here at Studio 1873 is brought to you by the Everset. The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
Okay, everybody, we are back with my final thoughts. So the takeaway from this conversation is clear. Today's New York City real estate market is not being driven by hype or headline narratives. It's being shaped by experience, capital, and intention. Older millennials, Gen X, and baby boomers are making deliberate, long-term decisions that really influence everything from pricing to negotiations, and that's how the deals are working. While Gen Z will eventually play a larger role, the current market belongs to buyers who understand New York, have lived through multiple cycles, and are approaching ownership with clarity rather than urgency. And that generation dynamic is exactly what defines where the market is and where it is headed next. And that is our episode for today of Talking New York Real Estate. As we head into a new year, remember, it is not about grand promises or overnight change. It's about intention. Choosing clarity over noise, growing out of comfort, and being deliberate with how we show up every day. Thank you for listening, for watching, and for being a part of this conversation. If this episode brought value, share it, subscribe, and keep asking the questions that matter. Until next time, stay informed, stay intentional, and keep finding your space. Thanks to my guests for being here on set with me. You can always follow me on Facebook, Threads, Instagram, LinkedIn, Blue Sky, or Substack. At Vince Rocco. And Norman Vincent Peale always said, shoot for the moon, everyone. Even if you miss, you'll land among the stars. And from all of us here at Talking New York Real Estate and the More Network, to all of you all around the world, thanks for spending a part of your day with us. I am so grateful. Keep thinking the good thoughts, and I will see you next time. Happy New Year, everyone.